So for this last video here of chapter 13, dealing with Venn diagrams, we're going to take a look at a case where we have now 3 sets instead of 2. And so we're looking at this example right here on your screen. And so we're trying to split screen this so I can do the Venn diagram at the same time you can see all the information here. So here's a real typical question for this. So take a look. We have 50 customers. So right off the bat, you got to notice that this is our universal set. So everything that goes into this rectangle will be a total of 50. Everything from left to right. So a total of 50 within the rectangle. The following was found. So I have 28 for adventure videos. So right here, this is set A for adventure. So that whole circle is going to represent those 29 people. 22 for comedy. So I should have a total of 22 within this circle. And then 18 horror. So right here, within that circle, I should have a total of 18 people. Obviously, if you add those numbers up, that's more than 50. So that means there is some area of overlap here, some people who fall into both categories. That's going to help us out get our total of 50. So moving on down the list, they give us a couple cases of people who like both A and C, 10 for both C and H, 5 for A and H, and then 4 who liked all 3. When we did sets of 2 Venn diagrams, we always said let's just start in the middle and work our way out. So the same is going to be true when you deal with a case where you have 3 sets. We always want to start in that middle region and then branch out from there. So we're going to start right here in the middle. So right here in our Venn diagram, that last statement that said right here that said 4 liked all 3. So I can start right off the bat and put those 4 people right there in the middle of the diagram who liked all 3. And then we're going to branch out from there. So right here it says 5 liked both adventure and horror. So if you look right here at this little area of the diagram, this is the area where A and C overlap. So within this area, I should have a total of 5 people because it said 5 liked both A and C. So within that little area, I should have a total of 5. So 4 are already identified, which means the remaining person, or the 5th person, fits in right there. So I do now have a total of 5 people that like both A and C. Moving out from there, it says 10 people liked both C and H. So find the area where C and H overlap. That's this area right here. So this is the area where C and H overlapped. And it says that I have a total of 10 people that like both C and H. 4 of those have already been identified, so the remaining 6 would fit right there. And then it says 8 liked both A and C. So here, right here is the area where A and C overlap. So notice that area. And it says that there is a total of 8 people within this area. So again, 4 have already been identified. The remaining 4 would fit right here. And so we're looking at these. So far what we have is the 4 people who liked all 3. This one person liked adventure and comedy, or sorry, adventure and horror only, but not comedy. These 6 people liked comedy and comedy and horror, but not adventure. Those 4 people liked adventure and comedy, but not horror. So that's kind of the way we can view what we have so far. Let me go one more step and branch out. The next thing they tell us is that, let me point to it right here, 18 people enjoyed horror. So look at the horror circle for a minute, and it says within this circle of horror, 18 people are in there. So far, I have accounted for 11 people in the horror category, which means the remaining 7 people fit in right there. So I got 7 people who liked horror only and nothing else. Then it says 22 enjoyed comedy. So look at the comedy circle, and it says that 22 people should be within that circle for comedy right there, 22. So far we've identified 14 people that are already in the comedy circle, which means the remaining 8 people who enjoy comedy like comedy only and nothing else. Moving into the last one, we had 29 that enjoy adventure. So in the A category right here, this whole circle, I should have a total of 29 people. So far we have 9 people within adventure, so the remaining 20 are adventure only and do not enjoy any other type of movie. They're adventure only. So far, if you take a look at what we have, of all the people that we've identified, so take a look at what we have so far within our Venn diagram. If you add up all these numbers, all those numbers that we have total within our drawing so far, they add up to 50, which means, go back to our universal set right there, said there was a total of 50 people, which means we have accounted for all 50. So there's nothing out here. There was no person that said, I don't like any of those three. Everybody chose something. And so there's nothing outside here, but there are all 50 people accounted for. So one thing to keep in mind is two things. One is, let's just say for argument's sake that this was 60 instead of 50. So what would that tell you? That means there were 10 people that should go right here that said they don't like anything. They don't like any of those three types of movies. The other thing I want you to consider is in some word problems, they might leave something out that you have to figure out. Well, one of the things that they're going to tell you within the word problem is if they give you a value like this, like let's just say they surveyed 50 people, they would say something like this. Of the 50 people surveyed, all 50 people selected at least one of those categories, which would tell you that there is nothing out here, and these numbers should add up to 50. So that would just be another way of wording it that might help you figure out one of these blanks if they leave something out. So keep that one in mind. So looking at our Venn diagram, let me just remind you of a couple questions that could now follow the scenario that you see right here. So they may now ask you how many people liked exactly 2 types of movies. Well, if you look at kind of the dark purple that I have right here, those 11 people, if you add those 3 dark purple numbers, those 11 people are the people who chose exactly 2 types of movies. If they said how many people liked exactly 1 type of movie, well, add up the blue ones, and those are the people who liked exactly 1 type of movie. They might say how many people liked none of the movies. Well, that would be 0 because we didn't have anyone left over. They might say how many people liked at least 2 types of movies. So right here, add in these 4 numbers, right? These are the people who liked at least 2 types of movies. So those are the types of questions that are now really easy to answer with a good diagram that's now drawn out. So that really helps to answer those questions once the numbers have been laid out like this. So let's look at one more example. This one is just a little bit different, so I want you to notice a couple things in here. Of course, if you're watching the video for the first time and maybe you missed the notes in class, this is a great place to pause, read this, and see if you can't fill out your own diagram. So in this case, it says we have 40 students. So again, keep in mind that is our universal set. We have 40. So total within this rectangle, I should have a total of 40 people. 22 soccer, 19 basketball, 13 tennis. So I identified those 3 sets. 6 of the students play tennis and basketball only. So here's the cases where you now have to be able to read into what that is telling you. So if it said 6 of the players, let me see if I can highlight that for you. So 6 of the students are tennis and basketball only. So here's where you have to recognize what that means. So tennis and basketball only. So here's tennis and basketball. This is where those guys overlap. This is tennis and basketball. But it says tennis and basketball only. So that's these people right here. They're leaving out the ones who also like soccer. So these are the people who are tennis and basketball only, and it said there were 6 of those. So that's a number we'd be able to fill out. And then right here it says 7 play tennis and soccer only. So 7 play tennis and soccer only. So Here's the case where we have tennis and soccer overlapping. These are the people who are tennis and soccer only. So those 7 people are tennis and soccer, but not basketball, is what that means. And then it says 10 play basketball and soccer only. So now it's talking about these 10 people who do basketball and soccer only. So again, here's the overlap right here for basketball and soccer. Right here, basketball and soccer, but it says basketball and soccer only, which means these 10 people like basketball and soccer, but not tennis, is what that means. So you can see where those got filled in. These are the people who like exactly 2 sports. So moving on, it says there are 9 students that do not participate in any of these sports. So right there, that tells me we got 9 people. Let me put those in green right out here. So I have 9 people who don't like any of those sports. And so that's the place that we need to put them. How many play all 3 sports? So now we're looking for that middle term, which is normally when they give us all the information, that's usually where we start. So this one's worded a little differently, and we got to see if we can read into what's given to help us find that information. So let's look at more what they tell us. So here's where we got to throw in some algebra skills and set up some kind of an equation for what we know. So I'm going to put an X for the value that we are trying to find, which are the amount of students who play all 3. And let's fill in the other spaces with what we know so far. So I'm going to grab this one. So if you look right here, remember what it said about soccer. It said 22 people play soccer. Well, within the soccer set so far, what do we have accounted for? I have 17 plus X so far accounted for soccer. Well, if there are 22 that play soccer, how many does that leave you with right here? So remember, if this is a total of 22, and I subtract out what we already have, which is the 17 and the X, that's what's remaining for soccer only. So right here I had a total of 22 people who play soccer. I'm going to subtract what I already know, which is the 17 plus X. So I'm subtracting out the amount that we've already identified that's going to go in that soccer only area. Read on, and it says 19 play basketball. So again, do the same thing for the basketball set. So I have a total of 19 players within set B. So right here, I have those 19 players minus the ones that I've already accounted for. So these 16 and this X are ones that I've already accounted for. So I got to take away the 16 and the X that we've already accounted for. Down here in tennis, said there were 13 total. So look right here, 7 and 6 make 13. So I know within the tennis circle, everyone has already been accounted for. So there are none left for people who like tennis only. All right, so now let's take into account kind of the global picture here. We know that there is a total of 40 students, which means everything that I have in that rectangle would add up to 40. And so that's our guide as to how to finish this problem off. So let me tell you 2 things about this one to finish things off. Typically, at this stage, one of the things that we would do is, knowing that the universal set is 40, I would take everything that I have, add it all up, and set it equal to 40. And that's a really common process for an IB style of question for a set of 3 when you're doing Venn diagrams. So normally I would say that this plus 10 plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this plus this equals 40 and solve for X. And that's a really common process. However, in this particular problem, we can actually cut right to the answer. If you read this statement right here, 13 people play tennis. So look at the tennis area for a minute, right? It says 13 people play tennis, which means we've already, if you look at these numbers, we've already accounted for those 13 people, which means this is 0. There are none left over to put into that space, so The answer to the question is there are no students who play all three. And so we can kind of skip to the end on that just by a little logic. But like I said, the typical question along these lines would be to add everything together that you now have and set it equal to the universal set to solve for x. And that would be the common process, but we got a little bit of a shortcut on this one because of the way the numbers worked out. We already can skip right to the answer.